Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking to Rai Cornell. Rai, it's great to connect with you. Appreciate you being on the show. CEO and marketing psychology strategist at Cornell Content Marketing. You've developed the Elite Method, which is a framework that guides businesses to deeply understand their ideal buyers' psychology, build lasting demand generation systems, and transform their brand reputations for long-term success and thought leadership. We'll get into some other stuff that you do, but I wanna start here, and I wanna kind of work backwards, talking about thought leadership, brand reputation, and transformation. Let's talk about thought leadership. It's a word that gets talked about a lot now, but what is thought leadership? Right. I mean, real, like true thought leadership, and not only what is it, but what does the consistency behind it look like?
Yeah, good question. So thought leadership is really, if you think about the things that you feel very strongly about, where somebody asks you a question at dinner or at a conference or a networking event, and you could just go on and on and on because you feel so passionately that something should be done a certain way, something needs to change in the world. That is thought leadership. That's where you have the power to share your ideas with the world and introduce these new concepts that are changing the status quo or the typical paradigm that we've all gotten used to, but that doesn't mean that it's the best way or the right way or the healthy way.
So something that's intrinsically within you, triggered intrinsically within you, and now you want to be a thought leader, or you are a thought leader. How do you now turn that into an online platform where you're sending your message and we're for good, right? Something positive. What does consistency look like behind that? Because I think that's where I think people struggle. They say, okay, I want to be a thought leader, but I got to do it consistently. So sometimes they don't even start. How do you start? How do you start, and what does consistency look like from your perspective?
So you're probably going to hate this answer, but there is no black and white consistent pattern. Everyone has a different pattern. So for example, there's the author of the Notes from the Universe who says he spends 6 to 8 hours a day getting this one little paragraph right, and he sends it to his email list every single day.
Yeah.
If anyone else tried to do that, that would be insane. Absolutely insane. On the other hand, you have people who write consistently and produce videos consistently, podcasts consistently, but they're only putting out one epic piece per quarter.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do to the best of your ability, and that's what I have to emphasize the most, is you have to choose a consistency pattern that you can stick with and that doesn't completely deplete you, but actually excites you, because it's that excitement, that passion, that's what's going to fuel getting your message out there. So it's not about posting every single day or every single week or even every single month. Now, of course, the more you can do, the better. But if you're just trying to go for numbers, you're going to lose the quality of your message, and it's going to be like you're talking to nobody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Let's talk about transformation. What does transformation look like today?
In terms of internal transformation, brand messaging transformation, reputation transformation.
All of it.
All of it.
Try to kind of find their lane of how they can make an impact and help transform others, have a lasting message that somebody intrinsically connects with. To transform, but to transform what, I think sometimes, to transform an idea, to transform, talk about transformation a little bit.
Yeah. So I think we idealize this idea of transformation. It's the best version of ourselves, the best version of our businesses, the best version of the impact we can have on the world with the profits that we make in our companies. We have this idyllic picture in our minds. And the problem is that's sometimes where it stops.
Yeah.
The transformation really happens when you say, okay, I'm here. The picture that I want to happen in my life or in my business or in my community is here. The transformation happens when you decide, okay, I'm just going to start living as if this is true, which means I'm going to start doing things differently. I'm going to start thinking differently. I'm going to start feeling differently. I'm going to talk to people differently. I'm going to use different words. I'm going to do things that match that idyllic picture so that you can start bringing it into the present, as opposed to it just being this far off thing in the future that's kind of like at a stick's distance. And no matter how much farther you go on the timeline, it's always that same distance. Nobody wants that. So you have to start skipping over that barrier and start embodying whatever it is that you want to change. Do it now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you use psychology-driven marketing. That's your approach in business. Your model attracts pre-qualified, emotionally engaged buyers. And so talk about that. I mean, there's a lot in that, as far as, I'll let you kind of unpack it.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in this system. So you mentioned at the beginning, I have this elite method, ELITE. There's 5 phases within it. And yet within each of those phases, there are psychological paradigms woven throughout. We borrow from cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychology, trans-theoretical model, all of these big, heady concepts. But really, when you boil it all down, and we're talking about transformation, the whole point of this process is to take businesses from a state where they are reactive to the market. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses, as my husband likes to say. They're trying to just do what everyone else is doing because they think, oh, this company's doing that and they must have success because they're bigger than us, so I should be doing those things too. And yet what ends up happening is all of their messaging is very shallow. All of their relationships with the people that they want to connect with seem very transactional right from the jump. And so you have to change the way that you look at marketing. It's not about conversions. It's not about sales. And I know people listening to this are probably gonna be like, what on earth are you talking about? That's insane. That's the whole point of marketing. That's a byproduct of good marketing. Sales and conversions is a byproduct. The point of marketing is to build relationships, build connections, start conversations, pave the way for your sales rep to take it that extra 20 to 10% over the finish line and get the actual conversion. But marketing's job is not the conversion. Yeah. So when you start looking at it in this different way, you start realizing, oh, I'm talking to humans. Especially my specialty is B2B marketing. So we're not talking business to business, even though that's what we've all been ingrained to think. We're actually talking human to human. And you have to layer I think the simplest of all the paradigms, and actually my favorite, is the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle, where our thoughts affect how we feel, which affects the decisions and actions that we take in the world, which then affect our thoughts and our experiences. So it's the cyclical triangle. And if you can interject at one of those points, then you can start guiding people to the behavior change that you really want to see. But that can only happen if you change the way you look at your marketing and start talking to humans rather than companies.
Yeah. I like what you're talking about. It's so interesting. I look at marketing as a way to get my phone to ring. Right.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I'm a business coach, and when people call me, my business is referral. Yeah. People refer people to me. Mm-hmm. But when they refer people to me, they go to LinkedIn, they check out my content, they go to my website, they check out my content, they watch a couple 1-minute videos, they listen to a couple podcasts. So by the time they call me, from my marketing, the probability of them working with me is very high. But to your point, it's not, nobody's reading a blog and hiring me the next moment. Exactly. But it's that kind of waterfall effect. I really I like what you're talking about. So let's so if a client were to come to you, let's just kind of give a scenario. A client, I think sometimes people think about marketing in a kind of, I'll get to it later, or we have some budget cuts, so let's take away marketing. Yeah, I'm under the impression, my perspective is, always be marketing, and then when the market goes the wrong way, double your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody comes to you and says, I've been thinking about marketing, I don't know where I should jump in, what it really means, talk to that kind of hesitant buyer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So start by thinking about what your business is like without marketing. What do you do?
Yeah.
All that's left is sales. You just sell, 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 sell. Now, if you're on the receiving end of that, what's that experience like for you? You're like, get away from me, go away. Stop trying to sell me some crazy stuff. I don't even know what you offer. I don't even know who you are. All you want is my money. That's the experience when you don't have marketing. So when you think about, okay, I don't even know where to start with marketing, that's where you have to, I like to think of it and kind of simplify and distill it down into marketing is how you educate your ideal buyers to be better customers.
Yeah.
So if you were to start with your sales team and you ask them, what things do you have to explain to people to get them to understand the value that our company provides? What questions are you answering over and over and over again? What are you so tired of having to teach people so that they get it? That's what your marketing's supposed to do. Your marketing should take care of that for you. So start there. And when you start there, you're starting from a place of providing education, providing value, answering questions. And I could speak on this for hours and hours and hours. But when you do that and you put that information in front of people at the right stage of behavioral change that you meet them in, you're giving them these dopamine hits that satisfy these little gaps in their brain where they're hungry for information, and it creates this subliminal, subconscious bond with your brand that makes them lean in and crave more. And then they think that they're approaching you. They think that it's their choice to buy from you. So just like you said with your example, if someone goes and reads your blog, they watch a couple of your podcast episodes, then they go, yeah, this is the guy for me. I want to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Then suddenly, what's your sales team's job? Just to answer a couple of questions, tell them what the price is, tell them when the next available start date is, send them over the contract, boom, done.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Let's talk about psychology meets marketing. You have a lot of what you're talking about is a psychology approach, a psychology-driven marketing approach. You came from a career in mental health and you moved to marketing. So just talk about that. I think that's so interesting because so much of marketing is psychology, and it seems to blend really well. So tell us about that path.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. That always warms my heart when someone says that, because for a long time I was kind of embarrassed by my background. After I made the switch into marketing, people would say, oh, so do you have a degree in business or communications? And I'd go, oh, no, actually, my education's actually in psychology. And I was kind of embarrassed to say that. But then, when someone goes, oh, yeah, I see how marketing and psychology go hand in hand, it always makes my heart happy. So I got a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in professional clinical counseling and marriage and family therapy, and another master's in criminology. And I was on track to be a counselor in the prison system. I was raised by 2 police officers, grew up in police departments as my babysitter, and the criminal world was just where I felt comfortable. And so I worked in mental hospitals, drug rehab facilities, community counseling centers, running substance abuse groups. And all the while, I was paying my way through school and internships and all of these things by being a freelance writer. And one day, I just completely burned out on the mental health world. It's this very bureaucratic, red tape industry that on the surface aims to help people, but there's just so much regulation and restriction that sometimes you can't give people what they really need. And I just got burned out on being stonewalled and not being actually able to help and do something. So I threw myself full time into what was my side business. And now here we are, 18 years later, and we have now infused all of that psychology that I used to use with especially my substance abuse clients, because that's all about changing the most ingrained behaviors of chemical dependency and addiction. And if you can change that behavior, you can change buyer behavior.
Yeah.
Switch someone from either doing nothing or buying from your competitors to buying from you.
Yeah. It's great. That's a cool background. That's a cool background. And it's cool that that you made that jump. There's so many, I mean, marketing is all psychology.
Yeah.
And, and messaging. Let's talk about this. My last question before a quick speed round is, emotional, tapping into the emotional engaged buyer, like you talk about that you do, getting that message kind of really, targeted to that person. People are more emotional than ever. So
Yes.
I would think that it's more difficult today to tap into that one emotion, because I feel like people have handfuls of emotion all at the same time. So from a marketing standpoint, where's the, where's the base of emotion that you're targeting? I mean, people can be, feel, one thing 1 second, one thing the next second. And getting them in that space, so how do you do that in marketing today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you're right. It's like a tangle, right? It's kind of like if somebody threw a ball of yarn at their cat and then 2 hours later they were to look at it. That's what emotions look like and feel like. It's just all tangled and you don't know where the ends are and you don't know where to start pulling without making it worse. And so what we do is we guide our clients through this process of creating what I call stages of change matrix, where there are columns and there are rows, and you're basically breaking down the moments that go from they don't even have a problem to they have the problem, but they don't even know what the problem is, all the way through. And it lines up very closely to the traditional sales funnel, but with a much more detailed breakdown that speaks to the internal experience that's happening on that cognitive behavioral therapy level, where you're examining their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And so you can kind of start to see, without actually seeing the grid in front of me here, how if you start to break it down by what needs to happen to get them to this next small step and this next small step and this next small step, and then you're also breaking down what do they need to think, what do they need to feel, what do they need to do, what's their starting state and what's our goal end state. You can start to break down and tease apart all those tangles into a very organized grid that becomes your implementation plan. It's okay, well, let's look at what we currently have. Where are the gaps? Let's start there. Let's create this and this and this and this. There's a lot more that I could go into, but we'd be here all day. You have to have a system.
Yeah, you got to have a system of, I understand the fun of what and how you're looking at it from all the different angles. I think it's great. That's where people can call you. We'll get to that in a second. Quick speed round. A book that's had a big impact on you.
Oh, I'd say there are two. One is They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, and Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. I think I'm saying his last name right. Those are two of my favorite business and marketing books.
They Ask You Answer? Clockwork. Okay, great. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
When I was really little, I heard this quote and it's stuck with me my whole life. I think I must have been 6 or 7 when I heard this. And it was, a man may fall 1,000 times, but he will not be a failure until he says someone pushed him.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Last question. First thing everybody can do to up their marketing is one thing that they can do.
Yeah. So the perfect litmus test is treat people the way you would want to be treated. If you're producing some piece of content, some piece of marketing, and you look at that and you go, as a consumer of that content, it feels icky. It feels sleazy. It feels like I'm being manipulated. It feels like I'm being pressured. It feels like I'm, they're trying to put scarcity and FOMO into my mind. Don't do it. Go with things that make people feel good. Yeah.
Good. I love it. Tell everybody who your ideal clients are and where they can connect with you.
Sure. Yeah, we work with B2B businesses, mostly in tech, edutech, SaaS, and you can find us on our website at cornellcontentmarketing.com, and I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, but I don't really like those platforms.
I know LinkedIn is really the place. Yeah. All right, Rai, this was great. Think community, we talk a lot about marketing on this podcast. It's so important to get out there and build mind share, and marketing does that. It builds mind share. Whatever consistency looks like for you. I just want to extract something Rai said. whatever consistently looks for you, dive in, create an editorial calendar, reverse engineer how to create that content and get some quality content out there to be a thought leader. Ray, this was great. I appreciate you taking time. You know, one of the things I always talk about is I think everybody should look at themselves as a media company. You know, how can you produce content? How can you put it out there as a thought leader? You know, don't worry about the likes. Don't worry about the this. Just keep on pushing content for the one client that needs it in that moment. And so I appreciate you taking time to talk about marketing. Again, tell everybody where they can connect with you if they want to connect.
Yeah, it's cornellcontentmarketing.com or on LinkedIn. My first name is spelled kind of weird. It's Rai, Cornell like the university. You'll find me there.
All right, good. Ray, thank you so much. Think Community, you can reach me if you want to talk about any business coaching at jondwoskin.com. Ray, thanks so much. This was great.
Thanks, John.